No?
First, I'd like to explain about that first part of the research, and which is what prompted me to start reviewing all this science in the first place. Is there such a thing as a sexual identity? Is that a biological phenomenon, or is that a cultural construct? Well, two people have figured largely in this debate, and they are John Money, a psychologist, and Milton Diamond, a biologist. And John Money's theory is often referred to as the psychosexual neutrality at birth theory. And his theory maintained that people come into the world with a brain that's blank sexually, and that they look at their genitalia, and they get treated by the world in a certain way, and that's how they eventually figure out who they are sexually. That's how they acquire a male identity or a female identity. That was John Money. Okay. And his theory has prevailed started in the 50s and has prevailed over the 60s, 70s, 80s, and throughout most of the 90s, and would still probably be prevailing if it weren't for Milton Diamond.
And that is the theory that guides what's in the DSM today?
Well, yeah, basically. It came out of that, in a sense, yes. Milton Diamond, on the other hand, being a biologist, has had a evolutionary perspective, and his view was very different. He was a proponent of the sexuality at birth theory, saying that we come into the world basically as a sexual somebody, that the brain is being organized while our bodies are developing in utero as embryos and as fetuses, just as you're born with genitalia that are developed either as a female or a male or something in between, as in many intersex individuals, but they're developed, okay? And so is the brain. And the brain is probably the most important sexual organ. And so, anyway, Milton Diamond maintained that we do, like other mammals, have an instinctive sense of our sexual selves that we are born with. And basically the evidence has borne that out. And probably the most poignant piece of this story is the David Reimer story, referred to in the medical literature as the John Joan case. David Reimer was an identical twin. He and his brother were born, I believe it was 1972, and he suffered terrible mutilation of his penis in a circumcision accident. His distraught parents went to John Money, who was, of course, the expert at the time, and John Money said, "Oh, no problem. We'll just surgically modify David, who was, as I said, called John Joan in the medical literature, and named Brenda. We'll surgically make him look like a girl," which meant they castrated him, Brent. They took away his testicles, which meant he could never be a biological father. I mean, and then Dr. Money said to the parents, lie to him, tell him he was born a girl, raise him as a girl. When he gets to the right age, we'll simulate a female puberty. We'll start giving him female hormones and so on. And presumably they were monitoring David and his brother both, but John Money was not telling the truth. He was running around the world telling the medical community that Brenda, as they called David, being raised as a girl, was a happy, well-adjusted little girl, you know, very feminine, not like her boyish brother, and was going to be a very happy, well-adjusted woman. And the truth was really something else, Brent. He was a miserable kid, and by the time he was getting pumped full of female hormones, the distress was so bad that the parents broke down and told him the truth. When he heard the truth, everything clicked in his head. He said, you know, and he decided to live as a man. He did the best he could to pull his life together. He went through the surgical and hormonal stuff to try to restore his maleness. He married a woman who already had children, and he adopted them. He really made a heroic effort to put his life together, and it was at this point, during the course of the years, John Money claimed that he had lost track of Brenda. How convenient, because you know what? Milton Diamond was able to find him. Milton Diamond found David, not Brenda. He found this person living as a man. And David had no idea that the John Jones case was I forgot to point out to the audience that this case with identical twins was the perfect experiment that you wouldn't have been able to ethically do on human beings by by choice, because we have a pair of identical twins here. That means their nature is the same, but we're raising one as a girl and the other as a boy, so the nurturing is different. This was the perfect nature-nurture experiment being done on human beings. And if, in fact, David had grown up to be a happy Brenda, that would show that John Money's theory was right.
Right.
Okay?
And in this case...
And John Money was telling the world that this was a successful experiment. And, by the way, the medical community was hearing really kind of what it wanted to hear. I mean, this was a good message to the surgeons, because they were being told that they could take, and here's something that was happening that David knew nothing about, thousands and thousands of intersex babies born with ambiguous genitalia were being surgically corrected, because Money's theory said that, you know, you looked at your genitalia and the world treats you a certain way, and that's how you come to your identity. So it was very important that you have typical male genitalia or typical female genitalia. You can't tolerate intersex, even though that's perfectly natural. Right. And intersex animals are all over the place. Okay? There's no place in the world for intersex people. All right. Yeah. And so these babies, these intersex babies, were being surgically mutilated. They had nothing to say about what was happening to their bodies or their lives. And you know, a lot of times even the parents didn't know. I have personally met people who've had their genitalia modified by a doctor who played God within hours of their birth, and the parents never even knew what was going on. Okay, so this was happening and this was because of Money's theory. And when Milton Diamond found David and told David what was going on, and David realized there were thousands of intersex people who were suffering in much the same way he had suffered, he decided he was going to cooperate with Dr. Diamond and let his story be told to the world. That was the end of John Money's theory.
We're speaking with Dr. Veronica Drantz, biologist, physiologist, on transsexual identity. This is a live call-in show. Here, the number's on your screen, 312-738-1060. We invite your calls and input. So, in round one, in this, in this case, nature definitely won out over nurture.